I'm Amanda Silver.
And I'm Alex Howard.
And this is Dirty Laundry. Okay, so today on Dirty Laundry, we have Toronto's boutique matchmaker, Shannon Tebb of Shannon and the City. So excited to meet you. Welcome, Shannon, to Dirty Laundry.
Thanks, Amanda. It's great to be here.
So happy to have you. Today is my first solo episode, which I'm actually really, excited about. Poor Alex is homesick with the babies, so it's just me today. So it should be fun.
Yeah, we'll have a good time.
Yeah. So welcome and thank you for having us in this space. It's a really cool space. I've actually never been here before, so this is fun. Ryan had to do a little bit of a roundabout to get here and to set up, but we're all ready to go. So why don't we start with you telling our listeners just sort of how you got into the world of matchmaking and what type of services you offer.
So I started my brand back in 2010, and back then I was kind of like one of the first dating coaches. And after I saw the movie Hitch, I was really inspired to help singles find love again and get back out there because, dating can be stressful.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have a coach in your corner, sometimes it's like it can make you feel like you don't want to, move forward, or you're really afraid to make those next steps. So I started as a dating coach, and then I also did a lot of social events in Toronto, which really brought a community together. And then from there, I just built up a singles network.
Amazing.
Which allowed me to transition into matchmaking.
So you've been doing this now for, 14 years.
Yeah.
So you know all the singles in Toronto then.
I probably interviewed at least like 1,000.
Wow. Okay. So I'm going to have to pick your brain offline because, I'm single, so we'll have to talk offline. But it is such an interesting industry to find yourself in. I mean, I'm sure you meet so many different people who are probably, I guess, are they all looking for the same thing? Are they?
Yeah, it depends. I do work with singles anywhere from, early 30s up to late 50s. So it's really a diverse dynamic. And everybody's kind of looking not for the same thing, but they do have similar qualities, right? Such as, someone that's really wanting to actually find a relationship.
Right. And it's so
and be intentional.
Right. It's intentional. And I think that's sort of what separates sort of what you do from like the online dating. And so I've experienced, I've been single for a number of years and I've experienced the online dating world and it's not been great.
No.
It's so transactional. You don't get to know someone. You don't get to vet someone. And I just think that people are sick of it. Like, I think it was great maybe 10 years ago. I feel like it was hot.
Yeah, it was hot when it first came out. But then, you kind of get lost like in the proxy of choice. Like you're always kind of searching for something better. So a lot of great people get missed, right? Because they're not focused on one person.
Right.
So that's the struggle that people are finding with online.
And I think people are now sort of coming back to the basics, where it all originated, which was matchmaking, which is like
the old school way.
The old school way. Which
matchmaker.
I was going to sing it, make me a match. Yeah. Sorry, listeners, you got to hear me sing.
And sorry for that.
No, you're great. It's just me. But it's so true. It's like kind of coming back to basic. It's more of like a holistic way of meeting people where it's like you can get to know your client. Mm-hmm. You can really pinpoint what they're looking for and match them with someone who you think it
would be a good fit. Yeah. So we match based on like values. We think about relationship dynamics, income levels, everything, lifestyle. Like it's really important to be aligned with someone that, you want to wake up in the morning and work out together, or you both want to have children, or you love traveling, right? So if the lifestyles aren't aligned, then sometimes that can be a disconnect for people. No matter how attractive you find somebody online, you have to be able to connect on an emotional, mental, and physical level, right?
And that's such a good point because online it's very much okay. Yes. You think that they're good looking,
exactly,
great, but then what about everything else? The values, the lifestyle, the education. All of the things that you figure out later on. Yeah. You can do that ahead of time.
Exactly,
you can sort of cross off that list ahead of time.
Mm-hmm. So and knowing what you want, I think, is important too. Knowing what you want before you start dating.
Do you think that people come to you and they don't know what they want, or maybe they're looking for something that's unrealistic?
I think when we do the initial consult, like when we sit down together and we build you a bio, I think that's really intentional, and asking them the important questions like, what makes you a great partner? Why is finding a relationship important to you? what can you really offer someone? So really doing that inner work and like, spending the time focused on yourself. Because so often we're just working all day and we don't make time for our personal life. We're thinking about ways, we want a relationship, but are we really attracting it the best way?
And what is the best way? Like you said, you mentioned working on yourself, which I think is such a great starting point, right?
I think and also healing those traumas, dealing with like breakups and healing that, and also self-care, making time to date. Like I've worked with a lot of people that are corporate singles that are workaholics, and now they're like, Shanny, I have to make time to like go out on the date.
Yeah.
So I kind of help coach them on ways that they can improve their personal lifestyle as well. I'm also a life skills coach. So sometimes we focus on your pie chart and your life chart first. And then once you're 100% date ready, we start the matchmaking process.
So what does it look like to be 100% date ready?
So I always say it's feeling good from the inside out, right? So we go through your chart. We ask, how are your finances? How's your health and wellness? How are the relationships you have with people already? Are you showing up the way you want to? Are you making time for friends and family? Are you feeling, healthy? Do you love your body? Do you love your job? And are you willing to make the space to invite somebody into your world?
I think
that's
good
important.
Point.
Yeah.
Because we get so focused on our jobs and ourselves and our lives and routine. And then I think the longer you stay single, the longer you stay single.
Well, and you become comfortable in your little bubble, right? And nothing's changing.
Right.
Because you're kind of just doing the same thing every day.
Yeah.
Work, gym, home, friends. Work, gym, home, friends.
And nothing changes, but you may want all of that. Like you want to settle down, you want to start a family, but you don't actually make the effort to let somebody in.
Yeah, I think it's really about making, creating that space, knowing what you want, knowing, and also setting your boundaries, right? So if you see red flags in the early stages of dating and you're like, maybe I'll just ignore that. Don't ignore them, because there's going to be more of them and they're going to backfire, right? So I'm all like about looking for green flags as well, not just the red flags, and also being, having an attitude of gratitude while you're out on the dates, so that you're not just like looking for all the bad stuff and self-sabotaging.
Right. Because I think if you look, you will find too. Like there's a balance. There's a balance of like looking for the red flags that you should, run the other way. Or, maybe looking too hard and then making it, you're too picky almost.
Yeah, like you're like too picky about something that's really superficial. Like, I didn't like what he was wearing. He didn't have the right belts or shoes. Like little things like that aren't going to make him a bad partner or show up bad in a relationship. So you really have to ask yourself, what are my top 5 core things that I'm looking for in a mate? And focus on that.
And so what it would be an example of like a top 5? Like if you were coaching me and I was going out on a date with someone you were setting me up with, what are your sort of your top 5?
So, everybody's different, but I think like I always talk about the 3 C's in dating. So you want connection, curiosity, and chemistry, right? So connection is, are we connecting on an emotional level? Are we, sharing how we're feeling about life and things that happen to us? Like not too deep, but you still want to like establish a little bit of a feeling together, right? Talking about things you're passionate about, what you're working on, not just like that typical interview, like what do you do for work? Where did you grow up? Right. So it's really about being creative on the dates as well. And then curiosity, are you curious to really even want to get to know your date? So are you interested in are you practicing being interesting because you're interested in her or him? Right. So that's the important part. And showing that you're interested. And then obviously you want the chemistry. And sometimes that chemistry can grow through, having that emotional and mental connection, sapiosexuals, where they're really attracted to the mind and how someone thinks. So that could be one way too.
And so do you find that like with your clients, like do you encourage them to like go on more than one date, like not write somebody off after the first date?
Yes. I say, okay, how would you rate the first date? Like rate it out of 10. Okay. And if it's like a 6 or a 7 or above, give the person a second chance. Don't just, cut them off too early, because a lot of times people on that first date are nervous. Right. They're trying to do everything right. And sometimes they're not showing up their true, authentic self.
I mean, I'm guilty of it. Like I've been on first dates that have just been awful, and I'm just like, I'm not going out with that person again.
No.
And like,
Yeah.
I had one where like he interrogated me for like the whole date. It was like question after question after question after question. I was like, I am drained. Like this is a no for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I can hear that like, you know what, give them a chance too. Like don't write people off right away. Sort of maybe understand that like everyone's nervous on your first date. And especially if you've been out of it for a while, like you've been out of, and especially in our industry, with divorce, a lot of our clients and our listeners are maybe coming out of long-term relationships, long-term marriages, and they're coming into the dating world for the first time. So some of my clients, they've never even online dated. Like they've sort of missed that. Yeah. And so now they're coming to the dating world and they have to put themselves out there, and they have all this, they have the baggage, they have the trauma, right? Maybe they were married to someone who was abusive. Maybe they are dealing with a lot of, issues with that. And so they're healing in that way. And then they have to trust someone and put themselves out there. And there's a fear of rejection and all that. So like, I wonder, from your perspective, how it's different. Maybe your run-of-the-mill client who hasn't been married, hasn't experienced all the crap that the divorcees do.
Yeah, like the 30s, they're still working on setting up their families, finding a husband. They've worked on their career and their education, and this is kind of like the last missing piece of the puzzle. Right. And then we have the divorcees that I work on, almost like branding yourself as a single. Not being a single mom who's divorced, but who are you as a single woman, Amanda, who's a gorgeous brunette, who's looking for love, who has a lot of love to give. So leading with that versus like, labeling yourself as a divorced mom. Right.
Like when we met today, we were talking. I think it took a few minutes for you to even realize that, hey, I am divorced and I'm a mom as well, because that's not my label.
Exactly.
Right?
It doesn't define you. It's definitely a major part of your life. But with dating and relationships, you also have to think about who you are as an independent woman and what can you offer someone. What are your best attributes? Because obviously you've changed since your divorce. You've healed, you've grown. So there's new stuff about you that you're learning.
And I think a lot of women, especially, and we obviously cater to a majority of women's sort of listenership. I think they feel like they don't know where to begin, right? They are just putting themselves out there. Do I start an online profile? Do I get set up by a friend?
Yes. Which way do I go?
How do they start? And I think using a dating coach is a great idea, because we always say, with all the other areas of your divorce, whether it be your financials or your parenting plans or your mental health, you need support, right? And so too do you need support with dating, right?
Exactly. You need someone that can, give you the feedback you need, can be a support system for you, because you may not want to tell your friends and family about your dating journey, and you want to have a coach kind of that's like your cheerleader supporting you.
Because also your friends and family have opinions.
Oh, yes. Always.
Right. Oh, I don't know if he's going to be good for you. He's a couple years younger than you, or he's like, I've had this issue where it's like, oh, he's too young for you. Oh no, he's too old for you. Oh, it's like you don't. It's like it's too many voices.
So one of my tips for people dating is to actually keep your dating life private until it's worth talking about.
I like that.
Because everyone will have an opinion, and you have to do you and see how you feel. Right. Obviously, if there's a situation that you need advice about, you can look into chatting with a dating coach or a relationship coach.
So speaking of dating, I'm so curious about dating etiquette, because I've been on a lot of first dates, and so have my friends. And I have questions about like the do's and don'ts of like a first date, or, and what the flags are, what the red flags are for like run the other way.
Sure. So let's talk about the do's. So first, I think it's important to choose the right date location where you're going to feel comfortable with your date. And it's a good vibe. It's not like you're going to Starbucks for a coffee.
Right.
If you want to do the coffee date, pick a cool cafe that feels like you're in Paris. Because your physical location will also bring the vibe that will, make the connection stronger. So, and also being familiar with like menu recommendations that you can talk about, or drinks that you love, that kind of raises your social proof and makes you more desirable.
So go somewhere like a cool... maybe up and coming, or like a cool cafe that's not just like Starbucks.
Yes.
If you're going to do the coffee date.
Or like a cocktail date, where you're like, oh my God, they have the best espresso martinis. Something that you can recommend to your date. So date location and date planning is huge. Another thing I tell women is sometimes we always want the guy to plan the date.
Yes.
But also I think it's important for us women to have a few ideas in our back pocket that we can recommend. So if the guy's like, yeah, let's grab a bite, but he's feeling stuck and not knowing the area,
Right.
you can say, oh, I really love Gusto, or I love, Myth, or, let's go here for Greek food. Let's go to Ossington, something like that, which will kind of eliminate the pressure of putting together the date plan. So you can both kind of do that together as a team.
I guess it's interesting because, like, I always wonder, is it a bad sign if, like, he hasn't put enough thought into it, that he hasn't thought of where to go?
And some women would cancel you out if you can't put together a date plan.
Like, you can't even just suggest a restaurant.
Yeah, like maybe he doesn't go out all the time and he needs a little bit of, like, some recommendations. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right. There's nothing wrong with, him saying to her, where do you like to eat? Where do you want to go?
Yeah.
That's okay.
So that's a good do.
Okay.
I don't, so a lot of times hygiene, right? So you want to make sure that you're showing up fresh to the date.
Take a shower. If you can't take a shower before your date, I mean.
Yeah. And also what you're wearing. Like, I know we all got really comfortable during COVID. We all wore our workout outfits every day, but you don't want to, like, show up to the date like you just finished the fitness class. Even though your body looks great in the outfit, you still want to show up in date attire.
Okay.
So plan your outfit ahead of time and maybe have 2 different looks. Okay.
Okay.
Another red flag would be, obviously, if the person's running really late and they haven't told you and you're sitting there by yourself. So etiquette would be communication, if you're running behind. Date follow-up is important.
Oh, yes. I'm always curious about that.
So one of my tips I like to give the guys is, I had a great night. You put her in the Uber. Yeah. Text me when you get home safe.
I love that.
That shows that you care about her safety. It shows that you had a good time with her. Yeah. And you still want to continue the conversation. Right. Then the next day you can ask her out again. You don't always have to ask her out that exact same evening. Right. A lot of guys are like, well, when do I ask her out again? Let both of you just sit with the date experience, go home, sleep, and then talk the next day.
Yeah. And so, the end, like you said, put her in an Uber. Like, I like chivalry. Like, I think there's something nice about it, right? Like, I like the idea of, like, you know what, whether they're going to offer to drive you home or they're going to put you in a, like, sort of
or walk you
home, or like I'll take care of the Uber. I think that's like a nice gesture.
Yeah, that is a nice gesture, right? Yeah. And some other don'ts would be anything from, being aggressive on the date, right? Like being too complimentary for physical reasons. Okay. Like, oh, you look really hot. Like leading too much in the sensuality and less about, complimenting someone's energy, or I read your profile and I really like your job. Like, what made you get into that? Right. It's nice to compliment, but you don't want to be too overly sexually aggressive. Interesting. And that happens to women, right? Yeah. And also taking over the conversation and not, making it like a game of ping pong where you're both sharing equally. I think that's important too.
Yeah. I mean, when you have someone that dominates the conversation,
yes,
it's the date's not going to go well.
Well, and you feel like you're just sitting there listening to all about his career. Right. And one other thing is if they're talking really negatively about dating in general or their exes, right? So if they're showing up with this, like, negative dating mindset, that energy is going to come out. Right. And it's going to feel like, okay, this person's, like, jaded. They're not healed. I'm not, like, vibing with them because they haven't really done the work and healed. So leave the negative energy. If you're not feeling well before a date, cancel. If you're not in a good mindset, if you're stressed, if you're feeling tired, like, don't show up if you're not feeling your best. That's another tip, right? Because sometimes we think we can't cancel because it's going to make us look flaky. Right. But if you show up not being your best self, you may not get the second date.
So interesting. And so do you think that the guy should always ask for the next date?
Yeah, I think first the woman should communicate, I had a great time. Yeah. Like, thank you. It was really nice to meet you. Mention something specific about the date that you like that pizza you recommended or the wine that we're sharing was incredible. And then the guy can definitely, ask her out again. But I don't think the woman should always wait to hear from the male first. Okay. I think it's a two-way street and you need to communicate how you're feeling and if you want to go out, if you enjoyed your time with them.
So the big question then
It's
is,
about being vulnerable.
right, and sort of putting yourself out there. My big question is, who pays for the date? Because I've heard different things. Some women,
I mean, I'm still old school. Like, I think that first date, whether you decide, and you have to figure out what your budget is. So if the guy's asking the girl out, what is your budget? Obviously, if you don't want to take her for a big steak dinner, that's out of your budget. Maybe you do the cute cafe or you do an activity date. That's not going to break the bank.
Right.
But definitely, I think it's nice for the guy to take care of the first date. If the date continues into drinks after dinner, I always say it's nice for the woman to say, I'll get us a nightcap, right? So you can go and pull out your card to pay for the nightcap or the whatever you're doing next. And a lot of times the guy will say, no, I got it,
this.
right?
Yeah.
But just by you making that offer shows that you're not just out to have what they were doing in New York, which is called foodie dates, where women were using guys to go out for free dinners. Did you hear about that?
No, I did not.
It's a big thing
in New York.
Well, because New York's expensive, so I guess they're all wanting these free dinners.
Yeah.
So maybe you don't want to commit to the dinner first, and you want to start with drinks. And if it's going well, that can lead to appetizers.
Do you think that it's a sign of their seriousness of the date if they want to book schedule you in for a full dinner versus just a drink?
Yeah. And also the timing.
Right.
So if someone wants to see you after 8 o'clock, 9:30 for a quick drink, I don't love that.
No.
I love more of the happy hour dates or the early evening, 7:30, where you can spend 2 hours together and not rush.
Mm-hmm.
If it's too late, then it feels kind of okay, you need to get home, get ready for bed. It's more late, like a booty call. That could feel the
borders
same
on
way.
booty call.
Not a booty call, but it could feel more like a hookup versus, like you said, putting in the effort to date plan and make it nice.
And I think that's also the difference of using a matchmaker versus the app.
Online,
because you don't know. You might be, sometimes they put in their profile what they're looking for. I'm looking for long term or I'm looking for casual. I mean, but you don't know. And then you go on this date and then it's they really were just interested in sleeping with you. And they had no interest in actually getting to know you.
Yeah. And if they're trying to meet you for a late drink, they may say, come back to my house for another drink, which is not good. Right. So that's a red flag.
Okay. Don't go back to the house on the first date is what you're saying.
No.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you know the person, what if you're set up with someone who you've known of, or you've known,
like a friend through a friend, you've seen them at a barbecue or events for a while.
Right.
You've known them in your life. Yeah, I think it's really about your own personal safety and what you feel safe with. So definitely trust your intuition, and just whatever you decide, just trust your judgment, and let a friend know where you're going to.
Important. So you let a friend know. And you're talking about online dating versus matchmaking.
Yeah, I would say
dating?
online dating because there is not a lot of screening and vetting. So letting a friend know that you're going out on a date, the location and the time. And then maybe you'll check in with her after the date to let her know that you're safe.
That you're home safe.
And it went well.
Right. And it went well.
Well,
yeah.
Or bad.
Or it right. You had an evening and you'll figure that out, I guess, after.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I wonder, for our, clients, in mediation, obviously a lot of our clients are their parents, right? So it brings a different level to the dating world, right? You're a mom. It's no longer just, I think you take it not more seriously than some without kids, but I think you do, because it's it's not, you're not just I always say, you're not just dating me, you're dating me and my 2 kids, right? Yeah. It's a package deal.
It's a package
obviously
deal.
I don't introduce my kids to people, but it's still I'm a package deal.
Yeah.
And so I wonder how is that different? In your work, you have some who are parents and some who are just, single and ready to mingle.
So definitely I would say the scheduling component, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of single parents have to get sitters or arrange, someone to watch their kids when they're out on the date. So the scheduling is really important. So being, I would say being really, flexible, but also making sure that you're respecting how their child's schedule is so that you can arrange the date plan accordingly.
Yeah.
So I think that's important. And also the level of safety. You don't want to introduce someone to your child right away. There has to be a stronger connection.
Yes.
One of my friends is dating a gentleman and she's recently met his kids, but they dated for at least like 6-7 months.
Yeah.
Until they felt that their relationship was at a solid level.
Yeah.
So if you're feeling like obviously you're very exclusive and you want to invite someone to meet your children and you have the conversation with your kids, then that's, that is a major step, but it is a beautiful thing also for the person on the other side to feel like you're welcoming, you're bringing them into your family life, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of singles that don't have kids want that experience still. So they may be that great stepmom or stepdad, that would be basically a bonus to the family.
I'm wondering what advice you could give to women who are like fearful about entering the dating world.
Yes, there is a lot of fear. And I think the fear comes with uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
And with dating, there's a lot that's left to the unknown. So one of my tips is you have to be comfortable getting uncomfortable, right? So putting yourself out there. I think the number one fear would be fear of rejection.
Yeah.
So rather than going into the date thinking, this guy's not going to like me, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy of love, all of those negative thoughts, you have to kind of reverse into a positive thought, right? Because the universe is listening. So I always think one of my tips is to kind of journal before you go out on the date and write down like, what makes me a great partner? Or why am I excited to meet this person?
Right.
What did I like from their profile? That way you go into the date knowing what you're going to kind of talk about. You can mention specific things about their profile that you liked, which creates connection.
Right.
It's not going to just feel like interview questions. Also the fear that you're not going to really like the person, or you're not going to have chemistry, or you're not going to be hot enough, or you're not going to be thin enough, right? So all of these things that go into our minds is self-sabotaging.
Totally.
So reverse those thoughts, have that positive dating mindset, and have fun with dating. Dating should be fun. It shouldn't be super serious. It's like just getting to know. I always say, treat it like you're getting to know a friend, like you're out with me.
Right. Take the pressure. I think there's a lot of pressure on these dates, right? Especially for people who are, maybe they are, a single parent. And so for them, they don't have so many evenings to just give away for a date. It takes a lot of effort to get that date scheduled, right? Exactly. So I think there's just so much pressure on those dates to go well that pressure kind of ruins it.
Well, and another tip is like before the date, like maybe you do like a little FaceTime chat so that pressure is removed, and you're doing like a FaceTime chat. You're seeing if there's a connection, you're feeling the chemistry kind of through the video.
Yeah.
And then when you meet the guy, it's less pressure.
So do you encourage what's your process? Like if you set two people up,
yes.
Do they FaceTime first before a date, or what does that look like?
So I kind of leave it up to the daters, to the singles, I should say.
The daters, I like it.
So I give the gentleman the female's number, and he reaches out to her, normally texts and introduces himself.
Okay.
Then sometimes they do a phone call just to put together the date plan. If they want to do a video chat, that's great too. It's really whatever you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
But we don't want to also like pre-vet and pre-screen everybody in that first call and cancel them out. So it's kind of like you want to save the date conversation for the date, not over chat too much.
Right.
So a good quick chat, 20, 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Not 2 hours.
Right. I mean, if you're able to sit, I think if you're able to like have enough conversation.
No, I mean like a 2-hour phone chat before you get out.
Right. Yeah. Then it gets to be a bit, then what do you talk about?
Because then maybe you won't have enough to share when you're out there again.
Right. You've already done all the first date questions. Yeah. That's so interesting. So when you set people up, you give the guy, typically you give the guy the number.
Yep.
He reaches out to the girl. They set up a date, and then they communicate with you. Like, do you coach them before the date and then after?
Well, sometimes, if they need like first date tip recommendations, that's included in our packages. So we can say, there's this great bar, Evangeline, or like check out Frenchie at the Hilton Hotel. It has a good vibe. So we're definitely, I know the city well. I've lived downtown for like 20 years. So that's definitely a perk to working together. And the guys like that because there's less pressure too.
Pressure.
And then post date, we do like a date feedback email. So the girl will let me know how the date went, share any feedback, if they're going to see each other again. And if they continue to date and they are exclusive, then we put them on a 3-month hold.
What's the 3-month hold?
So we pause your file for 3 months to give you that time to really, focus on that last match and build a relationship. And a lot of times that 3-month hold can continue on to you being in the relationship, and then we fulfilled our goal.
I see. So when you when you match people, you're matching them with more than one at a time, or it's just one at a time?
I don't want to be like an online dating site.
One
so
at a time.
It's one opportunity at a time. You get to look at a full bio. There's no blind dates.
Okay.
So you read like a full synopsis of your match with the photos. And I also take photos for clients as well. And I work with a great photographer. So that's a bonus too, to get your photos ready for your profile.
They get professional photos taken.
Yes.
Wow. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So I call them lifestyle shots.
Yeah.
And then you can use those with, on your business site as well.
Right.
And you have them forever. So it's a good investment.
And so what are some of your favorite success stories?
Yeah. So, I had this one date where it was her birthday and they went out.
That's a lot of pressure. A birthday date.
Yeah. Well, no, like I had matched them up, but then her birthday was the next day after they had planned it or something. And I said, oh, just so you know, like she recently celebrated her birthday.
Yeah.
So, and they wanted to do an extra date, like extra dating.
What's an extra date?
Well, I call that when you're doing you're exercising together.
You're together.
They're both kind of fitness people. So they went out on a gym date and he brought her roses to the gym and she took a picture of them in the back of her car and then they had dinner. So that was really cute. Another success story was I matched together this one couple and she's like, Shanny, you found me my soulmate.
Wow.
Like it's crazy. Yeah, they're still together. She left me a nice Google review and they're still going strong. And yeah. And then a match that I did like a couple months ago. She's like, I'm falling in love with him. So they're exclusive.
Wow.
Yeah. It's just nice when you get it right. Yeah. So when I do the matching, I kind of think about visually too, like the chemistry, how would they fit together, right? Because it's like you need that chemistry. You need, and also the lifestyle is important.
Yeah, I think that's a big one. Yeah. Because I think people go into it like it's not like one person's, it's uncomfortable, I guess, to ask those questions about lifestyle, but I think it's such an important part of the dating. So
a simple question you could say like, how do you spend a Sunday? Or tell me what your typical weekend looks like.
Right.
If the guy's sleeping in all day and watching Netflix and he gets up at 1:00, then that might not be for you. If he's like, yeah, I like to start my day going for a run. I make breakfast. I take my dog to the park. That might be like, wow, I do the exact same type of thing.
Right.
Like we're aligned that way.
Right.
Or I grew up in like a really loving Italian family. I love chaos. I love eating. I love wine. I love drinking, right? I love social. So that would be good with someone that is craving that, right? And that's not to say you have to date someone who also has a big family. It's like maybe that's something you've been yearning for.
Maybe you've been wanting that. And so
exactly.
that's the draw.
So that's a perk.
Some of your reels preparing for this episode. Yeah. And you talked a bit about situationships because I think a lot of people find themselves in these. Yes. And so from your perspective, what exactly is a situationship?
So a situationship is when you're, physically intimate with someone, you're seeing them often, but you haven't really had that label of being exclusive or in a relationship.
Okay.
They're giving you the emotional stimulation as well. They're spending time with you and you're like, what's going on? Like it feels like we're together, but he's not really he hasn't said that we're exclusive. I haven't met his parents.
Right.
I'm not his girlfriend, but I'm still giving him the girlfriend experience.
Right. They're physical. They're sleeping together. They're maybe going on
They're cooking
dates.
together.
They're cooking together.
They could be seeing each other once a week and that's all it is.
People get comfortable in that role and then they
fall into the trap and that can last, years, right?
So what do you do?
Because,
how do people get
because
it?
They're kind of like just taking that comfort, right? And seeing, oh, well, maybe things will change. So I'm going to give it a chance. But what you have to do is if you're not, getting what you want out of that situationship or you're not having the conversation, you have to have those important chats. Like, so what are we doing? Like, I'm kind of not on Bumble now. Like I've paused my account because I'm really focused on you.
Right.
And I'm really liking how we're vibing. Like it doesn't have to be a crazy, serious conversation. You can make it light and just be like, yeah, this guy asked me out last week, but like, I really didn't want to go because like, I'm totally into you.
Right.
Right. That's a good hint. And then he could say the same thing. Like, yeah, like I'm not really on Bumble either because I like being with you.
Right.
And that will lead to the more of the exclusive talk.
I think
commitment.
I think it goes back to communication.
Yes.
And I think that's what makes
Ask
or breaks
the questions
relationships
that you want answers to. we are so scared to ask those important questions. And if you're not asking them, then you're just going to be like, well, we didn't talk about it.
Right. And you're going to be making up this whole narrative in your mind, and that can just make you.
And you're losing time.
Yeah.
They always say, like, the more you're spending time with the wrong person, the less you're creating space for the right person.
And I think that's so key, because people find themselves in relationships and sometimes marriages where they're stuck. I think there's nothing lonelier than being in a relationship that you know that you don't want to be in.
Yeah, there's nothing worse than being in a relationship where you're completely lonely.
Yeah, because it's a loneliness
and feeling isolated.
Yeah, because you can't even make the opportunities are passing you by because you're stuck in this marriage or in this situationship or in this relationship, and you can't get yourself out. So I guess the takeaway from that is you got to be in the uncomfortable.
Yes, you have to also set your boundaries. So don't play the girlfriend card and be cooking them dinner and doing all these things that you would do if you were in a relationship, so that they can fight for your, they can fight for you and want to be in a relationship with you.
I think boundaries are so important. We always talk about boundaries on our show, and especially for women too, because we try and please everybody sometimes and take on all of these roles. And especially when you're establishing your a new relationship, it's important that those boundaries are set.
Yes.
Right. And respected.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with putting those boundaries in place.
Yeah. Like if someone wants to come over to your house the second date and you're feeling like, I'm not comfortable sharing my space just yet, set the boundary. Don't let them come up after the date.
Right.
Be firm in your decisions.
Yeah.
Right. And, our actions, we can say what we want to do, but it's how we act and how we react to the situations.
And it's okay to listen to your gut. Put yourself first, and you don't have to you shouldn't be doing
feeling pressured.
Feeling the pressure. It's the pressure. Yeah. And I think all people are, can find themselves in that situation.
And you can still flirt and let someone know that you're like interested in them romantically.
Right, physically, but you don't have to give away.
You don't have to get naked.
Do you tell your clients no sex on the first date? Is that like a rule?
Well, I don't, tell them
no naked on the first date.
Yeah, like I say, the first date should be about getting to know each other more than just, if
hooking up.
Yeah, yes, exactly. What you can do is like give them a hug, or maybe give them like a little, see if you have that energy together.
Okay.
Because you don't want to also end up in the friend zone.
Oh, friend zone.
Guys that I coach, a lot of them, they're like, Shanny, I'm so nervous. Like, how do I show a girl like I'm into her? Like, they're so afraid to like touch a woman because of everything, right?
Yes. Is it okay if I put my hand on you?
You say you have to flirt through nonverbal communication, right? So if someone's like, if you're vibing with someone, you lean into them. Me, I'm very touchy-feely. So if a guy says something cute, I'll like touch his arm, or maybe my hand will go on his leg.
Yes.
Like a gentle touch, right? Like caressing.
Yeah.
Playing with your hair a bit, like, moving in closer, showing them that you're into them.
Right.
If you're going to be like this stiff on the date and just like a robot, you're not going to feel the chemistry.
Right.
It's going to feel like an interview. So the guys also have to get comfortable in their sexuality. Women have to get comfortable in their sensuality, bringing out that feminine energy. Men still being in their masculine and, leading like a man, feeling and making the woman feel like she's safe and protected.
I love that. That's
as
really
much
nice.
as we love men that are, have good EI, emotional intelligence, we also want a man.
Yeah.
To like make us feel like we're with a man.
It's funny because like we want that, but then we also want, respect my independence, respect my boundaries, right? I'm an independent woman, right? So there's like, it's like a fine line of finding that person that sort of fits both.
Yeah.
Right? That has that empathy, but also that masculinity.
Yes.
It's not easy. So,
well, there's a lot of men that have tapped into more of like their own coaching and personal development, which is beautiful. And they're still in their masculine, but they're also like, creating relationships with other men that are discussing emotional things or trauma that happened to them where they've buried for so long. And now they've established a community where they can like come together and not be afraid to share those things. And that is going to make them a better future partner for dating and relationships. And sometimes guys come to me and they're like, I haven't really dealt with that, or I don't know how to show affection, or, my family was kind of cold growing up.
Right.
So then I can coach them on ways to get comfortable showing affection and being vulnerable and sharing how they feel.
That's really great. So, I mean, if you're in the dating world, you're single, call Shanny because she can hook you up.
Yeah.
Not in that way, or maybe in that way, but
Yeah, hook you up. I can coach you.
Exactly. She
Get
can
you
coach,
ready.
Get you date ready. What did you call it? Date.
Yeah, I like to call it like 100% date ready.
100% date ready.
Feeling good from the inside out. I do image consulting, so I've taken people shopping.
Oh, I love that.
And it's not about changing the individual or who you are as a woman or a man. It's about enhancing your beauty.
Right.
Because when people first look at you, you have that like 5-second
impression. Yes.
To see, am I attracted to this person or not? So you really have to like
put your best self forward.
Show up desirable.
I guess
that's
so.
the word. Ask yourself before you go out, do I look desirable or do I look like I'm going out with a friend?
Or do I feel desirable?
Do I feel desirable?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. So how do people get a hold of you if they want to use your services?
So they can visit our website, shannyinthecity.com. I'm on TikTok. I'm all over Instagram, and I have a Facebook page, Shanny in the City. But yeah, or you can just email me directly, date@shannyinthecity.com.
Amazing. Thank you.
I'm trying to help everybody. It's a busy time, but yeah.
And maybe she'll find someone for me.
Yes, she's my next victim.
Well, thank you again. It was such a pleasure and so much fun talking to you.
That was so fun.
Yeah,
Thanks,
I really
Amanda.
appreciate it. This episode was written and created by Alex Howard and Amanda Silver, produced, edited, and engineered by RTF Productions. Make sure to rate and review our show if you loved it, and give us a follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you stream your podcast to stay up to date on all upcoming episodes. Thanks for listening, and go easy on us. We're not your ex.